Hey there, fellow tennis junkies. Today we get to talk with Ian Westerman from Essential Tennis. He was also a professional tennis management student over at Ferris State. I'm one here at Hope College. So I've been taking a lot of inspiration from him, and I'm honored to get to talk with him for an hour. I really do appreciate him taking the time to talk with me. Just kind of letting you guys know there are some audio issues throughout the call that we had. A big part of that, I think, is because I am here on a college campus in the middle of the day. Kids are doing online classes, things like that. So my bandwidth isn't great. So I do apologize for any sort of sound issues. Can't really do much to fix that right now. But yeah, we kind of got to talk about the tennis industry, the coaching industry, especially the online part, and sort of some tips and tricks that he would give me. I've taken a lot of inspiration from him. I've been following him for a very, very long time on YouTube, and love all of his content. He makes coaching videos, mental toughness videos, match play videos, personal vlog style videos. He even creates his own coaching courses, things like that. And yeah, like he's kind of doing it all for the tennis industry right now. He definitely deserves more recognition than he's getting. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy the interview, and let's get right into it. So we are here today with Ian Westerman from the Essential Tennis team, and we're just going to be kind of picking his brain a little bit on all things coaching and internet coaching related. So first off, what sort of sparked your interest in doing the online coaching, and really what started the whole Essential Tennis platform?
Well, I started like a normal coaching job in 2004, right after I graduated from college. And I went into that line of work because I just had a huge passion for tennis. I just wanted to be around the game and figure out some way that I could somehow make it my career. When I figured out that I could actually coach and make a living doing that, it was like an incredible revelation for me. So when I graduated from college and I started coaching, I went into it super excited, super pumped and motivated and passionate about teaching. And I was almost immediately really frustrated by the fact that my average student didn't really share the same passion for learning that I had for teaching. And I was surprised, and in hindsight, it was pretty naive. Like I was kind of expecting everybody to be totally ready to make changes and challenge themselves and learn new things and improve, and that's why I was there. And I was really frustrated to learn that a lot of people would come to the club that I worked at for exercise or just to kind of hang out with their friends or kind of entertainment. Like it was just something to kind of fill in, an hour or 2 hours of their day during the week. Not all my students were like that, but enough of them that I kind of really started wearing on me and kind of burning me out uh, after year of doing more of like the entertainment type lessons than the really motivated, passionate, I'm here to learn, I'm here to challenge myself and get better kind of students. It really started burning me out. So in 2007, 2006, I started listening to a lot of podcasts. They were just starting to kind of become a thing. And I tried to find a tennis podcast, and there wasn't one yet about like improvement and like how to get better at tennis. So I just kind of like had the thought, well, what if I could do that and people could learn how to get better at tennis from me, and I could build a kind of a following or a group of people that shared my passion for improvement and learning. And so that's why I started publishing the podcast first in 2008 and then the YouTube channel in 2009. And it grew enough that it gave me kind of some some hope that maybe it could become like an actual job. And in 2011, that's when I quit my normal teaching job to actually just do the online stuff full time.
Okay, sweet. So like at what point did you stop doing you didn't stop doing the YouTube stuff, but at what point did you start like making the courses? Because like I know that on your website you have like the actual courses. When did you start like producing
Mhm.
those?
Yeah, the first one was in 2010. 2008, 2009, I did everything for free, and I experimented with different stuff, like shirts and donation model and sponsors. I had sponsors on the website and stuff like that. And not, like got a couple dollars here and there, but not anywhere close to enough where it made me thought, oh wow, maybe like I could make this my job, or I could do this full time. And 2010 was the first time. The first program I did was called Doubles Domination, and initially it was actually just a PDF and audio. I interviewed a bunch of professional doubles players. I wrote a PDF with a bunch of like court diagrams and explanations, and that was my first program in 2010. And that brought in enough money where I was like, wow, like this actually like might be able to work financially, where it could replace my income maybe, and I could figure out how to make this my job. So that really motivated me a lot. I redid the program and I did video for the second version of Doubles Domination, and that was in early 2011. So it was that second attempt at Doubles Domination did well enough. I told myself, if I bring in X amount of dollars, then I'm going to quit my job, and it did like 2.5 times that much. And so I was like, all right, well, if I don't give it a shot, like if I don't try, I'm going to really hate myself, 10, 20, 30 years from now. So I decided to just kind of jump in the deep end and see what would happen. And that was 12 or 13 years ago now.
Yeah, that's sweet. I think I definitely agree on the lesson front. Like I do obviously not as much coaching as you do, but over here we're doing like PTM, and we're doing coaching and things like that. And I'd say probably 9 out of 10 lessons are that like entertainment level, or that just like that older age who's like, I just want to go out and hit tennis balls. Like I don't care if I get any better, but they say that they want to get
Yeah.
better. And so that's interesting. I'm glad I'm not the only one with that experience. So I know I just kind of talked on PTM a little bit, the professional tennis management program. So I know that you went to Ferris and did that program. So if you had to take your top two things, what would you take away from the program as the most valuable?
Are you at Ferris now or a different PTM?
I'm at Hope, so just like an
Okay.
hour away.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is Jorge Capistani still running that one?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. He's a great guy. So the number one for me at Ferris was just definitely the industry connections. That to me, like immediately, I felt like the value of that. At Ferris, we did summer internships every summer, and there was this back in the old days, this big binder full of the different clubs and different connections that had been made over the years. And so you could pretty much go like state to state, like, okay, where do you want to do a summer internship, and you could go to Virginia or Florida or California or whatever, and see all the clubs where PTM students had already gone and already done a summer internship. And you could read about, the focus is on whatever pro shop management, or junior tennis, or high performance, or adult programming, or whatever. And so you could pretty much find whatever you kind of wanted to specialize in, or whatever part of the country you wanted to make connections. You could go there and get paid for a summer job. And that to me was like incredible, that amount of connection within the industry. And when I graduated, I really kind of felt that effect as well when my wife and I both made strong connections out in the DC area, and a job opened up at one of the best clubs in the country. I had, because of connections I had made in the program and throughout the tennis industry because of Ferris, I was able to initially I was not getting, an email back or a call back. But when the vice president of the USTA, who at the time, who started the Ferris program, called the club and was like, "Hey, you have a resume there from Ian, and you really should talk to him." Then that pretty much, bumped me up to the top of the pile. So that was most valuable for me. This second thing, I guess it doesn't really count. I played 3 years of team competition at Ferris. That's not really part of the program. But for me, that was like invaluable. That team experience was incredible. But in terms of like the PTM program specifically, I guess number two would probably, I guess, kind of similar, just kind of the camaraderie among the PTM program students. It's a small program. I would assume the Hope program probably isn't super huge. It's probably under 100 students, right? Or maybe around 100.
Oh yeah. I mean, we have eight. We have 8 students
Oh,
in
yeah.
PT.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So super small. All right.
very tight knit.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah. So to be just in a group of people who were, assumedly there for the same reason I was. Like I grew up loving tennis. I wanted it to be my career. So um, back home, Milwaukee, or just in general, that's super weird to want that to be your career. And so to be among other people that shared that interest and that passion was fantastic. So and then the professors, the teachers, the coaches, to have that whole community of people that share that same passion for the game and making it a career was awesome. I would say that was number two.
Nice. Yeah, with us, like we had a couple kids who left the program who came in as a freshman with me. So I'm the last freshman left, but I'm not a big school guy. I don't love school, never have. I'm really only here for the program. And I really find a lot of value like having such a tight knit group, like literally only 8 people, and 2 of them are seniors. So like next year they're gonna be gone. But it's one of those things where it's like I feel like I'll probably have some sort of connection to them my whole tennis industry career, like in some way. I'll somehow run into them eventually, and that's been kind of invaluable to me. And I've only been doing it for a semester and a quarter, so it's cool that you would agree with that. I don't. I guess Ferris's is pretty big compared to Hope's, which kind of surprises me. How many did you have in your class for PTM anyway?
When I was there, the program was between 60 and 70, and I
Oh,
know it's a lot
okay.
smaller now. My graduating class was probably about, I don't know, in the teens. It was probably like 12 or 14 or something like that.
Okay.
But I think the program now is more like 30, like 30, 40, I believe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's around that number. We just did like the Michigan Coaches Conference and they came and I think the majority of them were here and it was between like 30, maybe 35. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know it was that big back then. Wow, that's kind of crazy. Okay, so I wanted to ask what were some challenges that you had running in doing the online stuff? Not necessarily only YouTube or only the podcast stuff or whatever, but just in general, what were some of the main challenges you ran into?
Well, the biggest challenge by far, the first thing that comes to mind, I think the most important is that you can be a fantastic coach, you can be incredibly knowledgeable, you could be good at like the production and make things look good and sound good, and you could be really consistent and really put in the reps and be committed to it and put out new content every day. You can do all those things, you can have all those skills, you can be good on camera, you can be good on the microphone, you could have all those things and not make any money at all.
Hmm.
And so I came into it being pretty solid like on the coaching side of things, but I didn't know anything about internet marketing. And it's not enough to know about like I graduated in 2004, like, I'm I'm a kind of an old guy. So YouTube wasn't a thing until 2006. So I graduated with a 4-year degree in marketing, but the internet wasn't a thing yet. And so I didn't learn anything about what I needed to know to build a business online. The basics about advertising and marketing and branding and stuff like that. Like I think learned a little bit about that when I was at Ferris, but it didn't really translate into an internet business. So the hardest part for me, and it still is a challenge for me, is I approach things from the perspective. I approach things through the lens of a coach first, and that is not necessarily, and usually it's the kind of opposite actually. Usually that's kind of the opposite of what makes sales and like what brings in revenue, what makes money. So the hardest part for me has been learning the marketing side of it. Like it's critical to obviously to provide value and insight and make sure that when somebody goes through my content and goes through my programs that they come away with a deeper understanding in X, Y, or Z related to tennis. Like that's super important. But if I can't communicate as a marketer and as a salesperson up front in a way that actually moves them to make a purchase, they'll never see the content in the first place and nobody will benefit from it. And the whole thing is a waste of time. Uh, it could be it literally could be the most insightful, most powerful, most valuable, revolutionary like coaching content ever created, because I'm such a fantastic, wonderful coach. But if I don't know how to move the needle on the sales side of things and the marketing side of things and the advertising side of things, then nobody will ever see it and be able to take advantage of it or learn from it. So that was by far the hardest. Like, it was a struggle for me early on, and thankfully I was kind of mentored. I was mentored early on. I don't know if you know who Will Hamilton is at Fuzzy Yellow Balls. He was
Yes,
kind of
I
one of
don't
the
know him, but
leaders. Yeah, he was one of the early leaders in the like course space in tennis. And thankfully we happened to live close to each other, and we became friends really early. We started our businesses a couple months apart in 2008. He started in 2007. I started in 2008, and yeah, he taught me how to think like a marketer, and provided me with a lot of resources that helped me to figure out how to get people to sign up for stuff that would be able to help them. That was the hardest part by far. Um, what was the question again?
well, what was the biggest challenge for creating your online content?
Um, so, and this doesn't really apply. The second one anymore. It doesn't apply to you. The second one was back in 2007, 2008. Things were hard on the internet. Like, it's super easy now to publish content. We didn't have smartphones yet that had the functionality and the performance that they do now. And we didn't have platforms that were built out to make it really easy to publish and grow an audience and build an audience. So it's a double-edged sword. When I started, it was challenging, and that filtered out people that didn't really want to try hard. And so I had a couple years there where there was very little other noise from other people, because it was really hard to make a custom, web page and like gather people's email, like that's all so automated and so easy now, and much less video. Like, putting a video on a web page was really hard. Like, it was super challenging in 2008, 2009. So the upside now is that that's all done for you. It's all super easy. It's all super automated. You can do all of it with your phone. But the downside is, now that it's so easy, there's 1,000 times more people that are doing it. And so the competition for people's attention is dramatically increased now. So the hardest part for you, getting started now, is you actually have to be good now. Like, you actually, if you're going to keep anybody's attention and anybody's going to pay attention to you at all, which is like the first step to being successful on the internet. If nobody pays attention to you, then you don't have anything. You've got no views, you've got no downloads, you've got no audience, you got no business. and and back when I started, if you were just doing it, like if you jumped over the hurdles just to put out a video, then people would watch just because you were doing it, because it was still like a new thing and it was still relatively novel. But now for you, jumping in, there's already dozens of us doing it like every day. And so for anybody to take their attention away from me or anybody else who's already doing it and give that attention to you, you actually have to like be talented. You have to make it look good and sound good, and you have to come across well. And so there's a whole different. The good news is all the technology is super easy now, but the bad news is there's tons more competition for that attention, and so you have to overcome that. That's gonna be the toughest part for you.
Yeah, I definitely think of like the YouTube watch time analytic. That's like the most valuable thing to me, because like it's interesting to think that like back whenever there weren't as many people, you kind of just expected to click on a video and then like you just get the video. But like nowadays you need like all this editing, you need all these transitions, you've got to like do all these quick things to keep people's attention. And I think that's like the biggest struggle, because like for me, like I found some content creators on YouTube who were great, but they're like their videos have so much good information, but they're just not flashy and they just don't hold people's attention. And I'm like, how does this guy only have like 200 subscribers, but like his content
Yeah.
is way better than X, Y, and Z. And so that it's definitely a whole new like age of like you've got to be really good at everything, because there's so many people who are just competing with you all the time.
100%.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about it, but I'm kind of curious, like nowadays, like in the current day and age, as of February, if you're willing to get into it, I was kind of curious, do you typically tend to make more revenue from the YouTube videos or from the courses? Because in my mind, I would think it's from the YouTube videos because you've made so many that there's so many backlogged that people just come across them. So it's just like a passive view system. But I know that YouTube does not pay that great for their ad monetization. So I was kind of curious if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so yeah, uh, I'll be pretty specific. Currently, like the way the business of essential tennis is right now, we need anywhere, depends on the month, but anywhere between 40 or $50,000 a month, like to cover our expenses. 40,000 is probably a good like average recently. It used to be a lot higher, but we've shrunk a little bit in the last year or so. Last month, I think we brought in around $3,000 in YouTube revenue. So it's less than 10% of what we need just to like break even comes from YouTube views. So about half of our revenue comes from like course sales, like selling access to a program that teaches somebody how to do XYZ better with strategy or technique or mental toughness or fitness or whatever it happens to be. And the other half roughly comes from me actually working with people in person. And I view the YouTube revenue as just kind of like an auxiliary, just kind of a nice like side little bump of revenue every month. But it's never been, I think the most we ever brought in in a month, and this was like a huge like not a normal month, was probably up around $10,000. So, and at that point in time we were larger. So it's never been more than like a quarter in any given month of our revenue. Uh, on average, like a good ballpark average that YouTube will pay you is around $5 per 1,000 views. So if you get 1 million views on a video, then you can count on around $5,000. And in a pretty small like niche, like tennis instruction on YouTube, I mean, a really good video is getting maybe 20,000 or 3,000 views. So if you're able to like rinse repeat at the very top of the YouTube instruction space, and like every video get 20,000 views, then maybe you can do decent. Like if you're just by yourself, but if you have like full time editors and production people, and if you're spending money on court time and maybe office space and the equipment and all that, like you're not, yeah, you better, yeah, you're not going to make a business, as at least right now, in a small niche like tennis instruction just going off of YouTube views. Maybe that'll change in the future. Or if you really want to do content about tennis and make a living from it, then in my opinion, you should be chasing after like tour news and like drama stuff around the tour. Like that has a much broader audience. And if you want to make like the views game work as a business, then that would be a much better thing to go after.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. Yeah, that I your niche is really small because like we talked about earlier, like you need a player who like really wants to sit down and get better. So that's definitely a smaller
Yep,
group, specifically on like the tennis
exactly.
YouTube side. I found a little bit of success in the whole like racket review, string review space. Um, that's been kind of fun and it's interesting. But what's interesting to me is like I don't know if you know like the tennis advocate. He's the one who does all the drama videos where he's like he puts like
Yeah.
different parts and stuff. Those videos blow up and I love them. And he does so little editing. Like he takes the clip, he'll add the captions, that takes what 15 minutes, and then just uploads the thing. I don't know how like the copyright licensing works, but I like that's kind of what blows up. So that's interesting that you say that because
Advocate.
yeah, I think that's his name, like the
I
tennis
haven't
advocate.
heard it. I don't think I know that one. Tennis advocate. I'm gonna
Yeah, I think
check
that's the
that out right
name,
now.
but Yeah, he makes all like the drama videos like from the tour from WTA and ATP.
Wow, I haven't seen this guy before. Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just subscribed. Tennis Advocate.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, that he's great because like it takes all of the drama clips, it takes all of the arguments, and he just compiles them into each little like every 3 weeks or something, and it's great.
Yeah,
So that's been interesting to me. And then also like the cult tennis. I don't even know if you've seen cult tennis. I assume you
that one
have.
I've seen. He does a
That
fantastic job. Yeah.
Yes, he blows my mind. But the problem is that his production quality is so high that it takes forever to produce video because they're like it
Yep.
takes so much research. So yeah, but it's interesting that you say that because your niche is definitely probably the hardest one to grow on YouTube, in the tennis space anyway. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of break that down. I wouldn't have assumed that it was that much of it came from the courses, to be honest.
Yeah, I've been meaning to make a video of like, and I just keep putting it on the back burner. There's especially from people in your generation, like, you see the Mr. Beast and like the David Dobrik's and stuff like that, and you just kind of assume that, oh, if you're a YouTuber, then you're just like crushing it, and the reality is the method the numbers game. If you're in a small niche or a small topic, it really just doesn't really shake out. Like it just doesn't really work out. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. People who are actually serious enough about improving that they would go to YouTube and be like, "How do I hit a forehand?" is a pretty small chunk of tennis players. And tennis players is a small chunk of tennis fans, like people who are generally interested in tennis. And so we're just like niching down, niching down, niching down. And yet, as you pointed out, and I think you're right, tennis coaching is probably the most competitive space in tennis content, online. Like there's more coaches targeting, tennis instruction than there are, cult tennises or tennis advocate or whatever, which is kind of funny. The larger opportunity is definitely in like just general tennis, like fandom or drama and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to talk about what is one negative and then one positive trend in tennis coaching, not necessarily the content creation, but like the in-person coaching that you've seen in the last few years.
I mean, I should really be more aggressive, more harsh about this. I'm just, I don't, I've always hated coaches that have an attitude like my way is the right way, and all the other coaches have this wrong, and so just avoided like wording it or phrasing it very aggressively in my content. But in my opinion, the fact that using video in a private lesson or a group lesson in tennis is still really kind of weird and almost kind of like faux pas and like strange. Like, oh no, like I don't want to see video. I don't want to use video. I can't tell you how many students come to work with me here in Milwaukee because they might be in a way bigger tennis, city than me, but they've gone around from club to club to club looking for insights on their game. They've plateaued for a while, and they go around from lesson to lesson, club to club, court to court, and it's kind of just the same rinse repeat kind of this the same format, the same phrases, the same cliche, bend your knees, keep your eye on the ball, kind of coaching, and they're looking for much deeper, information and insight, like way beneath that surface level. uh but unfortunately, here's the thing, like it's a cyclical thing. Like as we discussed earlier in the conversation, most tennis players are looking for more of the entertainment, the activity, the exercise. And so your average tennis coach makes a living mostly providing that service and mostly providing that kind of experience. So when somebody who's really into learning and like analysis, and they want to see, like slow motion breakdown of what they're doing on their backhand or the serve or whatever, your average tennis coach is like, oh, like, that sounds like more work. Like, I don't want to have to learn how to do the technology, even though it's like on their phone and it's easy. It's just an extra step, and it's an extra piece. It's an extra amount of education that they're going to have to do to figure out how to even provide that analysis and that insight in the first place. B, like, why would I go to that extra trouble just for like 2 or 3 students that I have a week, and all the rest of them could care less. In fact, all the rest of them, if I took out my phone and I was like, hey, look at your forehand, they're going to be like, don't show that to me. Like, I don't want to see it. So there's this crappy like feedback cycle or feedback loop of mediocrity in tennis, in my opinion, where players really just kind of want the surface, like they don't really want to get super uncomfortable and like change their grip on their serve or on their volleys or whatever. Like they just want to learn how to get 5%, better. They're not trying to get 50% or 100% better in the next, 2, 3, 4 years. They're looking to get 5% better in the next like month would be fantastic. Like that's kind of what they're shooting for. So your average coach is used to providing that, and your average student is happy with that service. And so the fact that video is not a standard part of tennis, I think, is the biggest I don't know what to say. The big negative on tennis coaching right now. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, totally get it. Like the technology was problematic. It was expensive. It was not very intuitive. Like it was challenging. It's unbelievable. Like my 8-year-old son could do video analysis on my on my forehand. He doesn't know anything about tennis, but he knows how to aim a camera and like hit the red button, and that's more or less all you need to be able to do to get started. So that's the top thing. That's the number one negative by far. And then the second part was biggest positive or the biggest
Yeah,
like plus in
biggest
tennis coaching. Was that it?
biggest positive. Yeah,
um, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind right away. I mean, I guess the flip side of that would be it's not like very it's like finally there's not paper court sheets anymore.
yeah,
So it's like finally like and there's still clubs out there using paper court sheets. Like they're still out there. Tennis is just slow, man. Tennis is slow to adopt technology. It's like a relatively new thing that somebody can go onto the club website and like book an hour of court time or whatever. And it blew my mind, and it was in 2010, when I was still working full time. Like why are we still like erasing stuff on freaking paper? Like this is ridiculous. This is terrible. um and I was working at one of the top, most respected private, country clubs in the country. um so anyway, finally, like we're starting to see some adoption of technology and like the administrative side of things and the management side of things in tennis. So that's good. That's good for students, it's good for coaches. It makes things more convenient for the client. But on the analysis side of things, on the coaching, on the teaching, like on the insights, side of things, it's still terribly underutilized, and there's much more that should be happening on the court. In golf, it's normal. Like video has been normal in golf for 15 or 20 years, probably 20 years. Like it's hard to take a golf lesson now without video being involved. But for whatever reason, man, tennis is just kind of resisting the technology, and that's really frustrating for me.
yeah. I wonder why. Like what? I guess because it's extra work. I don't know, but it really is a bummer whenever you think about it, because like ever since going to do like the master class thing with you, like I try my best, at least I guess with like the videos I make, I kind of like judge myself as I edit them, but um I don't know,
Good.
it seems weird to not use it at all. And you're right, like we're just kind of slow as like an industry. We're just kind of like stuck in our ways. Like the coaches who run the world are typically on the older side and want to do it the old way. And I don't know, it just kind of that I agree. That's definitely a bummer because it is underutilized a lot.
We're counting on you, Kyle. You need to make, you young bucks coming into the system. You guys need to normalize it and make it like a standard thing. If you guys don't kind of break the trend, um, I mean, it's gonna change eventually, right? But it's like it's just so painfully slow. But you're right. Yeah, it's mostly dominated by old dudes, at the top. But it's always kind of been that way. So you're gonna have to wait until like millennials are the old dudes, I guess, before like video is like a normal part of a lesson.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I kind of wanted to talk about like you looking back a little bit. So if we're pretending that you're freshman year, sophomore year at Ferris, what kind of advice would you give to your younger self now?
Oh man. Um, well, so in what kind of vein of are we talking as a student, as a player, as a coach, or any of those?
Um, Kind of as more so as a coach and a player.
Okay, well, the player one's the easiest for me. Like, I was kind of in high school. I was a big fish in a really really small pond as a player, and I kind of got used to being the guy, like the tennis guy. Like I went to a small private high school, and I was homeschooled. I only went for my junior and senior year, but I still like broke, like records for like wins and stuff at number one singles because it was just a small school, that never really had any like very good tennis players. Um, so when I went to college, and I didn't make the team my freshman year, and I wasn't good enough to make the team. And I walked on my sophomore year at Ferris, and I played six singles and three doubles my sophomore and junior and senior year. And so I didn't realize at the time how hard that mental transition was going to be on me, and it really blindsided me. My sophomore year, I was just so excited just to be there, and just be a part of the experience and part of the team. But then as my experience went on, and I was day after day after day, the weakest player, and under that kind of like stress and like challenge, um, I started getting more and more and more unhappy because I kind of expected intuitively, like to me in my own head, I expected that if I just work hard enough, if I just try hard enough and just bust my butt, then I was going to be able to figure out how to kind of like fix all the flaws I had in my game, figure out how to overcome, the challenges I had just day to day in practice, but also in matches, against other schools. And when that didn't happen, and it was still like the game is still hard, of course, and I didn't just figure out how to snap my fingers and like fix everything and solve all my problems, and I had kind of a perfectionist like approach, mentally to the game. I got more and more and more angry and unhappy, and by my senior year I was just mentally like a total negative like wreck inside. So that's definitely the biggest thing. If I could go back and like coach myself and teach, like teach myself anything, my freshman year, my sophomore year at college, it would be on the mental side of things. I worked harder than anybody else, but I just didn't have. I'm not super talented. I'm not, a very talented, athlete, and so I I would say I outperformed relative to my talent level, but in the moment, I didn't have the perspective yet to understand that I was outperforming. And instead, I was just frustrated with all the misses and all the losses. And so I went to a really negative place by my senior year, to the point where I stopped. Like I stopped competing, and I was like, I'm about to graduate. I'm about to get married. I'm about to like go into my career. I hate playing tennis right now, which was a total 180 from where I was, a couple years before, and so I just stopped. I just stopped playing. So that was the number one thing for sure. If I could go back and uh, change that, then it would have saved a lot of anger and frustration. What was you asked? It was like a two-part question. What was the other thing?
No, that's kind of what I was looking for. I found that super ironic because that's literally the exact same spot that I'm in, where like
Uh
I
oh.
no, I find that so funny because and my dad obviously listens to all my stuff, and I guarantee you he's gonna hear this and he's gonna text me the second that he hears you say that because like I got to come watch the Hope team play on my visit. And I wasn't like a huge deal in my area. Like I'm from Texas, from like the Fort Worth area. So like I wasn't a big deal. But I went to a small private school. It was me and my doubles partner. We were really good for our little tiny division, and we were great.
Yeah.
But like if you went outside of that, we would get killed by like real players. Um, and like, so I got here and I did like the captain's practices with the team. I'm like, you know what? Like, I think I'm gonna make it. Like, I'm playing pretty well. I'm playing with the top guys the whole week. And then we get to tryouts, and I've never tried out for anything. Like every time that my whole high school career, I just walked on and I just was the number one singles, was the number one doubles.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so first tryout, I choked so bad. Like I was so nervous and I choked. It was terrible. I haven't played that bad in like years. And like everyone was shocked whenever I didn't show up for the next day. I got like 5 or 6 texts, like, where were you? And I'm like, oh, I got cut. Like I did terrible. And
Wow. That
and
sucks,
so
man.
now like I'm
That's
trying
tough.
to get better. Yeah. And like I'm trying to get better so I can play. And like I'm friends with all the guys on the team, and some of them are PTM people, and it's great. I love all of them. They're super, like, they're great to be around, but like it's hard to practice, like find people to practice with whenever it's like D3 school, like there's not a massive like pool of players to practice with. And so I'm trying to make it on the team, but what I've learned is that like not competing, like I enjoy playing more, in a way. But on the other hand, I still miss competing. And so it's like I got to go home for break and I got to play a tournament, and I was like, man, like I miss like playing with like pressure. But then whenever like I do it,
Yeah.
it's like then if I like do it and lose, it's like, oh, I hate playing competitive tennis. So I find that really ironic that that's like the story that you picked whenever that's like literally my identical situation. And if I had to put money on it, I'd say that I'll get pretty close to making it next year if I don't make it, which like no big deal, because now I've kind of learned that like that might be better for me in the long run to not necessarily like force myself to play competitive tennis. But I find that kind of funny that that's the one thing you picked in like identical boat on that.
You gotta learn how to lose, man,
Yeah.
and you have to learn to embrace like the L, no matter how important it is to you. And you're gonna need that, going into life. You're gonna need to learn how to take an L, like a bad one, and an hour later, or a day later, or a week later, just be like, all right, like, yeah, that sucked, but now what? What do I have to do now to keep moving forwards? If you're so paralyzed in the moment by taking the L, that you're like, oh, like you're like panicking inside, and you're like, how do I keep this from happening? Then the choke's gonna come, like 100% it's gonna come. Um, it wasn't so much that for me, like, that was part of it for sure. But for me, I didn't understand yet where my place was in the game of tennis. Like, I had a certain perception of myself and like my abilities, and my level of talent and stuff like that. And I was way off. Like, I wasn't anywhere close to where I kind of perceived myself. And so there's this big gap for me between who I thought I was as a player and who I really was. And so that's why the results made me so furious. Was it didn't make sense in my own head, like that loss that I just took. It wasn't so much that I lost; it was like I lost to that guy. But in reality, he was better than me. Like, he was more talented than me, but I didn't see that at the time. And so that was kind of the root of the frustration for me. It sounds like for you, maybe you're just not used to taking the L, and you gotta get over that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely it was a mixture of that. It was just I went in with a certain expectation and I didn't meet the expectation. And it was just kind of
Yeah,
like, huh, I didn't see
yeah,
this
yeah.
coming at all. I wasn't mentally prepared for this. So
It's
okay,
tough. Yeah.
cool. So I just kind of have two more. So first I want to ask, like, generally, like, knowing what I'm trying to do and that sort of thing. What sort of tips do you have for someone looking to grow their online presence? I know you said like the online marketing, but let's say like I don't take the course route. I'm not really planning on wanting to do that. So if I was going podcast, YouTube route, um, potential website a little bit more, what would you say are the main tips that you give me?
Well, or in a couple of sentences, like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Or is this like a career builder thing where you just kind of want to do it on the side, and have be like a respected, content creator, and have it be your kind of your side hustle? Or are you thinking like you want this to be like your job, to be a content creator?
So like tennis spin, like the
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So
The
I'm
guy at
not
the
a
pro shop.
fan.
Yeah, Harry.
Yes, I'm not a fan of the whole video a day no editing thing, but kind of taking that route where like I want to have my own pro shop. I still want to coach on the court, but I would like to do like kind of like what Mark does. Where Mark does his own thing on the side, but he's kind of built it up to be like a pretty big fan base in like this tiny little niche. So I kind of want to like create something like that while also doing other things in the industry.
Okay. So you don't need it to be like you don't need it to bring in X amount of dollars.
Right.
It's more so, auxiliary for you is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's way easier
Yeah.
than the other one. That's good. That's fantastic. So since I know that's your kind of end goal, man, I would say, I mean, that's fantastic. That takes off so much pressure, and it takes off so much um, stress to like figure out how to monetize and the business model and all that sort of thing. So I would say just focus on figuring out the topics, the style, the mediums, whether it's audio or video or written. Just figure out like what you really personally enjoy and resonate with the most. Like, what do you most enjoy talking about? What platforms do you most enjoy posting on and like really being active on? Um, I would if I were you, I would approach every single piece of content just purely from the perspective of, oh, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. What did I like about this podcast? What did I really enjoy about that video edit? What do I really enjoy about Facebook versus Instagram, versus Twitter or whatever, and just start to kind of experience and cultivate likes and dislikes for yourself so that you can narrow, because right now like the options are super endless, and everybody you watch online who like gives advice on like how to grow a business or how to grow an audience is going to say, oh man, right now it's totally YouTube, like if you're not doing long form content, then you're a loser. And then somebody else is going to be like, oh no, like audio is like the way of the future, and if you're not going all in on podcasting, then you're going to totally miss out. And if you're trying to like optimize second by second on the internet, then you're just going to be constantly like chasing your tail. So the fact that you view this is like have to build a business model kind of thing is fantastic, because you can basically ignore anybody who tells you that you have to do it XYZ medium or platform or schedule or whatever, and just do the stuff that you like to do. Like that, if you're going to do this on the side as like an auxiliary thing, that's ultimately the most important thing. If it starts to feel like work, if it starts to feel like school, like we share that also. I hate school. If it's to feel like going to class and like I just have to do this because if I don't do it, then I'm going to be a failure, then you're it's just not going to be worth it, especially if you're not getting any kind of financial reward in exchange. So does that make sense? Just optimize for like your enjoyment and your happiness. And when you actually truly enjoy the content you put out, it's a show. Like you're gonna be more consistent. You're gonna do a better job. You're gonna be more excited to do it. You're gonna come across more engaging. And so that's gonna be the path of least resistance by far.
Okay, cool. That's kind of what I expected. My problem is consistency right now. I blame it on school just because you never really know what I'm gonna need to do each week. So it's like one week I have like nothing I need to do, and then like the next week I have like 40 things I need to get done. So yeah, the consistency part is hard, but I think the fact that I enjoy what I'm making
Hmm.
is kind of like offsetting that, because at least like the couple of videos that I can make are fun, and it's like a fun thing to do on the side. So yeah, I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm glad
that's
that was
huge.
your yeah. So last I just wanted to have you pick two things that you would do differently if you were to start Essential Tennis from ground zero. There's no presence online, nothing. If you were to just start from the very bottom today, what would you do differently than how you did it?
Well, first of all, it would suck. I'm glad I don't have to do that, because it's so much more work now, for sure. Um, hmm. I would go all in on video right away for sure. Um, video is just my favorite. And in terms of, because I am trying to build a business, like I am trying to uh, support my family, and I am, trying to like make the biggest difference possible in terms of my impact on the game of tennis, in terms of my career, like looking back and feeling like I did the best I could to help the most amount of people. Uh, Video is that thing, right now. So frankly, I enjoy doing and publishing my audio podcast the most, but it's the thing I'm least consistent on, because in terms of, this is why you don't necessarily want to do what you don't want to do what I'm doing, because what I really enjoy the most is the audio podcast, but the audio podcast doesn't move the needle in my business. And so it gets put on the back burner, and I have to instead optimize for, I like making videos too, but for me, there's just something very personal, and I really love the audio format. So that's why, yeah, it's a good thing that you're not worried about building some big like business like empire or whatever. So since I do need to support my family financially, I would go all in on video immediately, and I would figure out some kind of studio setup where I could post daily, and it would be daily video. And as early as possible, I would hire somebody to do the editing. I like editing a lot, but it just takes so much time, um, and it's not really the thing that allows me to provide the most value, like to the world. Like if when I'm making content and the video gets published, like that's what I believe I provide the most positivity and the most impact on the world of tennis. If I edited videos all day, I like editing, but I don't feel like I really, I'm not making a difference in the world by cutting another video. Um, so as early as possible, I would hire somebody to do my editing and do my publishing. I would figure out some kind of studio setup where I could sit down, like flip one switch, have everything turn on, which I kind of am just getting to now after making a transition a couple months ago. Uh, so it's super key to just take out all the friction points, anything that's annoying or takes an extra 5 minutes to set up and actually do the content. You remove everything that takes another 30 seconds of like setup time. Whether it's swapping out batteries or plugging stuff in or like setting up the lights, or whatever it is, just remove every piece of friction possible so that you can just sit down and just like do the content. um so yeah, I go all in on video. I'd do whatever I could to post daily. I would hire somebody as early as possible, like whenever financially feasible it would be, to hire somebody to do the editing so I could do more videos and do less editing. I would do that. I would set up a space so that there's zero friction. I can sit down and just make videos without having to putz with stuff and mess with stuff. And um yeah, that's my first 6 months right there, is putting those things in place, and then figuring out whatever the publishing schedule is that I can maximize the frequency while keeping the quality relatively high. That's my starting point. And just get the snowball going on the audience side of things, and then come up with some kind of program, some kind of coaching program, instructional program that would tie in whoever I happen to be attracting. I'd be asking lots of questions about who they are, where they are, what level they are, what their problems are, what their frustrations are. And then probably 4 to 6 months in to the hopefully daily video posting, I would come out with my first like for money program that solves whatever the top problem is that the audience is having.
Nice. I think my favorite thing out of everything you said was either the editor thing, because that takes so much time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or it would be the one stop, like you flip a switch. Do you know like the tech reviewer Marques Brownlee? Do you know who that is? The
Yeah, for sure.
MKBHD? Okay. Have you ever seen his
Yeah, he's a
studio
baller.
tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's, oh man, his studio tour, like it's $100 million, whatever it is.
Yep.
He has
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah, he has like individual rooms for that exact thing. And it blew my mind where like there's like one shot and it's just like the thumbnail picture where like he walks into this room and he like turns on a switch and literally everything all powers on, all the lights turn on, the cameras turn on, everything just turns on. He walks over, he turns on his, $40,000 camera, clicks the button once, flicks the switch off, and he's done for the day. And like
Yep.
that's like the dream right there. That blew my mind whenever I first saw that video that he made with a studio tour. But that's
Yeah,
kind of what I
that's
imagine.
that's a really key that's a really key insight, Kyle. At first, when you started getting into content, you know, the gear is super cool and attractive, and you kind of come into it assuming that the more you fidget like with the gear, like the better you're doing or something, or like the more legit you are, if you have like more cameras and more tripods, and you have to like decide which one you're going to use, and like what lights go best with and the more you waste time on that kind of stuff, the less content you put out, and the less content you put out, the less success you are. Like it's really that simple. So yeah, if you optimize for efficiency as early as possible, it'll make the whole thing like spin up way faster.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's all the questions that I had. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk with me. This is cool.
You
Hopefully, we
bet.
get to work again together, talk with you again. Especially with the summer coming up, I am going to be living here during the summer, so I'll be nearby. And but yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I love the videos you're doing. For what it's worth, my favorite style of video is whenever you're doing your personal training, and it seems like that's whenever you get the most views. Whenever I was looking, is whenever you're doing training with one other person, or you're like working on one part of your game and you're like coaching yourself. I love that style because it's like so few coaches are willing to be like, I'm doing something wrong. Like I'm not the perfect almighty one-handed backhand Federer. Like I'm not. And I love that about your videos. And that's definitely what I enjoy the most is either that or whenever you were doing like the live stream matches. That was sweet. Like whenever you had a couple hundred people in there, like everyone's typing into the chat box. You have like two commentators or sitting, like that was awesome. So I know that you're like transitioning courts and stuff, but once you start doing those again, like I love those for what it's worth. But yeah, I really enjoy
Awesome.
the stuff you make for sure.
So what's the top two things that you're going to take action on after this conversation?
Well, number one is going to be creating a better system of making content. I think my current system is not. Uh, I can't really keep doing it the way I'm doing it. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I think I need to start like scheduling in a time to work on stuff rather than like finding a time to work on my videos because I try to find a time, but it's like, oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I already went to 4 classes today. And so I need to like
Yeah.
force myself to like put it on my Google Calendar, like 1 hour, you're going to work on this. Um, and then on the other side, I think just kind of ramp up the recording because I think I get caught up, especially in the editing part, where like I get caught up doing something really cool and like a cool transition clip. I spent 45 minutes on like a 12-second
Yep.
clip. And then I'm like, wow, what a waste of time. Like literally half the people are just going to skip through that anyway. Like what a waste. So I think I need to just kind of like ramp up where like I did this thing wherever I went and did some string reviews. And typically I'll go and I'll play with the string, whatever, I'll write it up and then I'll go and record myself playing with it and then like put it all together. But what I did this time was that I went out and I recorded one day. I just a 1 hour court time. I recorded 3 different strings of me playing with 3 different strings. And then I was like
Nice.
playing and working on one. And then I just started like slowly working on all of them. So like my filming time, it's impossible to get a court here. I mean, like we're at like a club. So like we have 6 courts. We have like full-time coaches doing their private lessons. We have the full-time classes running. Like it's literally impossible. I typically can get maybe a court from 9 to 10 p.m. and that's it. Um, if that, plus finding people to play is even harder. So like I think trying to film multiple videos at once and then like slowly working on like the voiceover and then the editing stuff is better than like going one
Yep.
by one. So I think I need to start doing more of that. It'll be more efficient that way.
Perfect. Yeah,
Do
the
you do
more you
that?
can batch stuff together.
Yeah. Is that how
Oh
you
yeah,
film your
yeah.
stuff?
Dude, I'll shoot sometimes if I'm making a course. Yeah, I'll outline it all ahead of time, get the court time, get the gear set up. I'll sometimes shoot 30 or 40 videos in a day, in one day.
Wow.
And
Wow.
just bam, 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 bam. Yeah, if you're like setting up for each individual video and then tearing down and then setting up again for one video and tearing down, yeah, that's the type of stuff that's going to kill you and just make it
Yeah.
feel like it's so much harder. So yeah, the more you can plan ahead and the more you can batch stuff together, and the more efficient you can make the whole system, the yeah, those little, it sounds, dumb from the outside probably, but those kind of improvements are everything. It enables you to actually produce at a rate that's meaningful.
Yeah. So last two things with Jorge, I've helped him with a couple of like his drills and stuff because he does like his drill
Awesome.
channel. That's how he does his
Yeah.
thing, where he'll literally record like 30 in the span of like 45 minutes. And then like I won't see that video for 6 months, but like he just
Yep.
has it and he's just like slowly working through. So I think that's like watching him do that is what made me think of doing that. But it's super minute. It might be stupid to ask, but do you ever do you ever change clothes whenever you do things like that? Because like for me, my next three videos, I'm wearing the same thing. And like, does that look weird from like a viewer
Nobody
standpoint?
cares.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
nobody notices, and even if they did, they don't care. Um,
Okay.
I have done that once or twice in the past when it was, yeah, for like very specific reasons. But generally no.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, don't think too hard about it.
Okay. Because I was thinking to myself, like, man, I'm about to upload three videos in a row with the same hitting partner, with pretty similar camera angles, with the same clothes.
Yeah,
I wonder if anyone's going
nobody
to
cares.
notice, but okay. Good
Nobody
deal.
even nobody even is gonna notice. Like, yeah, you'll notice those things watching other people's content just because you make content. When you don't make content, you don't even notice that stuff.
Yeah. Well, like the odds of them watching like all three of those in a row are pretty low anyway. So that's
Yep,
probably, yeah.
yep, yep.
Okay. Sweet. Well, thanks, Ian. I
Make it easy,
really,
man. Make it easy.
really appreciate it. Yep. Sounds good. All
Yeah,
right.
you're
You have a
welcome.
good
Keep up
one.
the good work.
Thank you.
You too.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Bye. And that's it for my interview with Ian Westerman. Really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see the live video call, you can check it out on my YouTube, Tennis Junkies, 10S Junkies, just in the your YouTube search bar. Or you can check it out on the Spotify or Apple or Google Podcasts, any of those. Yeah, let me know in the comments of the YouTube video what you guys took away from the episode. I really enjoy getting to talk with Ian. I learned a lot, and it's really cool to kind of get to talk to one of your tennis idols. It was a really cool experience for me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you rate the podcast, like the YouTube video, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next one.